All right, we're back. It's COMP1073, and it's the winter 2016 semester up at Georgian. It's week 11, part 1 of our broadcast. And we're talking about a couple things today. I want to continue with jQuery today for like part 2 of jQuery. We've kind of handled some of it, and we've got a folder that we've been working with from last week, lesson 10. I want to just copy this, duplicate this lesson. Right, so here we go. We're going to go into lesson 11 today, and we're going to use the same stuff that we did last week as a starter, and we'll just change it like we've been doing from one lesson to the next. Right, so again, when I bring up Visual Studio Code, just make sure that that's correct. There's lesson 11, right? And what I want to do is just rename stuff so that, again, it's just, you know, it's jQuery Essentials. This is part 2 that we're handling today. And I want to change my project a little bit because it's starting to get, every time I add something new, it's starting to get a little bit unwieldy in terms of adding additional modules and classes and stuff or libraries. I got to add them manually. I got to go to the site, grab everything, and it's becoming quite cumbersome to do this over and over again. So we got to figure out a way. Is there a way to grab some JavaScript libraries a little easier for us and add them into our workflow? This is lesson 9. That's the project side. But that's what I want to try and do. So we're going to recreate this project a little bit. But before I do that, I'm just going to clean it up and put it up on GitHub for you. So I'm going to go into here and kind of going to open in terminal. And I'm going to remove that Git repository for a second and create a new one. So Git init. And again, the good thing about me doing this over and over again is you've seen how I can create a Git repository a bunch of times. So hopefully, just by through osmosis, you'll see me, you know, adding Git repositories over and over again, and you get more comfortable with it. Okay, Git commits -m initial commits. I've got this done, and I'm going to put it up on GitHub. So we're going to go here, GitHub. And we're going to go into Georgian, and we're going to add a new repository. Then we'll put in called COMP1073 lesson 11. And I'm going to grab these last 2 lines to make it nice and simple. Like we haven't done anything different with this one. I'll clear this one up and put it in, press enter. So now we've got our repository up online. So lesson 11, waiting for you if you really want to take a look at it, if I do something that you can't do. So we continue to add new things, and if I want to add a new library in here, I have to always swim out to the, you know, to my code. I'm always having to swim out to, let's say, jQuery. Last week we added jQuery, but I got to kind of go out there and grab jQuery and put it in manually, and I have to do that for Bootstrap too. I have to go out to Bootstrap, grab Bootstrap, and put it in manually, and it's becoming a pain in the ass. What if I want to add handlebars tomorrow or something else? I got to go out to handlebars, grab handlebars, and put it in manually, or use the CDN. So there's a couple of approaches here. Let's listen to the CDN approach. CDN is really cool when your site's in development, but you have no control over what's being served to you from the CDN. Okay, that's a negative, right? So if I was going to see the, you know, the CDN, the content delivery network that we talked about last week, let me just bring that slide up. So one thing we talked about is adding jQuery here at the top through this content delivery network idea, right? So we have, here's our site being served up by the server, and here's this content delivery network. This is a great idea, right? And again, it's nice and stable, like I said to you, for the most part. But you don't have any control of the files you're getting from the CDN. From a development perspective, I would do this as the last step. I wouldn't use a CDN as the first step. And the reason for that is, again, you want to control your versioning for your libraries and all that kind of stuff. So that's one. So there's a negative there for us developing. 2. I want to go to the actual site and grab everything manually and bring it into my code. Again, pain in the ass. You got to go up there, grab the stuff, download it, extract it, put it in properly, adjust it, put it into my code. Really hard. So we need something. JavaScript has always been needing some kind of package manager, if you will. If you look at Visual Studio Code, they have a package manager built in called NuGet. That's built into Visual Studio, I mean. And there's npm is another package manager that you'll be using for Node applications, right? That's something that's built into for Node and backend server JavaScript applications. Great. But we need something for front end, and the solution for this one is something called Bower. That's kind of the package manager that most people use now. And if I go to Bower, follow me here for a second so you can see what this is all about. It's the package manager, like it says, for the web, but really for JavaScript. So what we do is we have to install Bower with npm. So you can't have Bower working for you unless you have Node installed in your system. And by now you guys should have Node installed in your system because we use HTTP server, or most of us do, to produce, you know, kind of serve up our files temporarily, right? So you have to kind of go through this step here to install Bower. I wonder why is it locked?
It is.
That's weird, right? So let's do that. Let me show you what that looks like. So if I was going to look at my code here, and I'm just going to clear my screen. So let's say I didn't have Bower installed, right? So again, installing Bower would be something like this. I have to have Node installed. So Node, my version of Node that I'm running right now is 5.40, right? So you should be somewhere in that range. It's not the latest version, but pretty much a later version of Node, right? Please don't have Node 0.12 on your system anymore. If you do, you should have updated it by now. And my npm version, if I now that I have that working, my npm version, if I go npm minus version, is 3.53. So that's kind of something to check out. If you don't have these, you know, this stuff, and it's not working for you on your command prompt or terminal, if you're using Mac, something's wrong. You have to kind of fix that piece. But if you've got this working, the next step is you have to install Bower. So the steps would be npm install. Npm is your Node package manager, right? And I'm installing a package globally, right? So npm install -g for global, and then Bower, right? And what this will do is it'll go out to the web, grab the latest version of Bower, which is a JavaScript library, and it'll install it into your code. If you can't do this, and by the way, if you're using a Mac, you may have to do sudo npm install as an example, because, you know, installing npm, just doing npm install like that is a problem for Mac users, or if you're using Linux. Now, who has that problem? Anyone has to do, if you have a Mac, are you doing sudo npm install? Okay. You can get around that by from the web, and when I said Node, if I go to nodejs.org, this is the first thing. Notice that my version is 5.4 and the latest version is 5.91. It's moving up quickly, right? Eventually I'll upgrade, I swear. But anyways, you need Node first. This is the first step. Grab Node and install it on your system. But if you're a Mac user, I wouldn't do it this way. I would go through Homebrew to get Node. So I would uninstall Node from your Mac and get Homebrew to install. And when you do that, you won't have to use npm anymore, or you won't have to use sudo anymore. So you don't have to say sudo npm, because it's kind of a pain, pain to do that all the time, right? So that's the first thing. So once you've got Node installed and npm installed, because npm, the Node package manager comes with Node, then you can do an npm Bower install, right? So npm Bower install is what I just did, or install -g Bower. G is for global. Are we there? Does anyone have a problem doing this? Okay. First of all, does anyone have problems with npm on their command prompt? How about that? So if your npm is not working on your command prompt, you need to install Node, right? So in your terminal, you have to go and install Node. Remember, I've been using HTTP server, so for now, you should have that there. Anyone have problems with npm running on their command prompt? You guys are okay? You didn't have it at all. Okay. So you didn't have it at all. All right. Remember, I've been running HTTP server the whole time? That's how I do it with Node, right? So the first piece is installing Node, right? And one of the challenges when you install Node is making it work on your command prompt. And for that, there's some, we need to, especially on a window, from a Windows user's perspective, Windows users have the most trouble with Node. And the reason for that is because they can't make it work properly on the command prompt. You have to change your environment variables in order for Windows to recognize that your command prompt has access to Node, right? You have to do that. So we have to change that up. And what I'll do is I'll take a short pause on the video and go around making sure that everyone has that, right? Because in order for us to use Bower, there's no point in me doing Bower if you can't use Node and npm, right? By the way, like I said, this course is a preparatory course for other courses. So when you do client-side scripting, this course here, you're learning JavaScript and you're learning some ancillary technologies. When you go into server-side scripting, when you're with Rich, as an example, it's good to know these technologies. So when you go in there, you're not learning everything like 20 technologies at once. We want to kind of separate it out. So we start off with some of these things. And Node, just setting up the Node package on your system is one of those technologies you need. So let me just go back to the overview. So the first piece is installing Node. After you install Node, you need to install Bower. And Bower is your dependency manager for JavaScript, right? And I'll give you an example, an overview of how this works. So let's say, for example, I have my project here, which is lesson 11, and I want to include another library, not just Bootstrap and jQuery, but let's say, for example, I also want to include Font Awesome, which doesn't seem to be here, right? I don't have Font Awesome in this library. I have JavaScript, jQuery and Bootstrap, but no Font Awesome, all right? And I want to include that in there. So I need to go to my command prompt, right, or terminal, right? And what I want to do, first of all, is kind of set up my Bower installation first. So Bower requires a JSON file to function with. Just like we have a projects.json file that we use for our paragraphs and everything else. Sometimes we also have a tsd.json from last weekend or last week, just to talk about how to use some code hinting for jQuery. Again, we're not talking about TypeScript. We're just using TypeScript for code hinting. So we have that. We also need sometimes JSON files for project configuration. So think of it that way. So we're going to make a new configuration file, and it's going to be called bower.json, which is going to configure our project for using Bower, the package manager. Now, before we get there, by default, Bower installs your components in something called a folder called Bower Components, which is kind of long and unwieldy. And so I want to move those components into our scripts. We already have a scripts lib. I want anything that we download from the internet to go right into this folder, right? In order for us to do that, we need a Bower RC file to get that done. So this is just a dependency. We'll go over this again. I'm just showing you the overview first to see how this all works. So right-click, I'm going to put a new file in place, and it's going to be called .bowerrc. What bowerrc does is just a configuration file. Inside my bowerrc, we're going to put a new directory option, and we're going to change from Bower Components to our scripts lib, okay? Scripts lib. So this is what the first thing we change. Once we've done that, and we're going to, by the way, guys, just watch. This is just a watch, and then so see the overview first, because this can be confusing if you've never seen it before, and then we'll do it together, right? So first part is we need a bowerrc file. Okay. Now that we have the bowerrc file that's part of our project, we can do something like this. We can say Bower init. And what Bower init does is it runs a wizard, right? A little step-by-step that says, hey, what's the name of your project? I'm just going to step through this. What's my description, right? And I'm just going to kind of accept all the options. I'm not even going to change anything. And when it says, does it look good? I'll say, yeah, it looks good, right? And what it does is it actually creates a bower.json file with a configuration of what my project looks like for when it comes to dependency. So right now, if you notice, there's no dependencies, no modules that I have listed in here at all, because I've just created an initialization for my project. If I just initialize my Bower project here, okay? I haven't added anything new yet. I haven't added Font Awesome. I want to do that, though. I want to add Font Awesome in there, and I want to do it instead of me going onto the website. Like, these are the steps I would have to take normally. Go onto the website, go to Font Awesome, right? Here's Font Awesome, right? And then after I go to Font Awesome, I'm going to click download, right? So this is what I want to do. When I download Font Awesome, so I got to find that. Here, let's go to home for a second. Download, click download. Decide which one I want, and then download my Font Awesome, unzip it, right? Extract it, put it into my files. That's a lot of steps, right? To get Font Awesome working, right? So instead of that, especially when you're developing regularly on the web, and of course, my hope is that, and our hope is that you're going to start developing regularly with web technologies, right? Then you want to use a package manager, and that's what Bower does. Let's just clear the screen for a second to show you what this does. So instead of doing all that work, going to the site, getting the stuff, downloading it, extracting it, putting it in the right places, we can do it in one step like this. Bower install font-awesome. We're going to use a switch, -- save, which saves Bower, the Font Awesome instance, or as a dependency inside of our bower.json file. It just lists it there. So let me just press enter. It's going to go out to Font Awesome, grab the files for me, right, and put them into the exact location that I want them. Bam, it's there. So now if I look in my lib folder, I have a, and by the way, sometimes I have to say this as well, that you may not see it here. I have to sometimes close my folder, my Visual Studio Code, and reopen it just so it refreshes. But if I look at my folder now, my lib folder, I have Font Awesome in there, right? So it's got everything, all those steps, like grabbing it, unzipping it, putting it in, and putting it into my project, done. One step, one line to do that, right? As opposed to doing it all manually yourself. That's a real pain, right? So now I just got to link to it. I got to take Font Awesome and link it into my folder. And this is the path: scripts, lib, Font Awesome, CSS, and then fontawesome.min.css, right? That's it. So let's try this out and see if it works. And I'm going to kind of undo all this stuff, and we'll do it together because I need to get your Font Awesome working. Okay. Notice that I already have Font Awesome here, right? I've downloaded it, manually. That's what I did the first time, and it's under contents. Under CSS, I already had it in there. Here's Font Awesome. But I want to point to my Font Awesome that I downloaded just now inside my scripts lib folder, right? So we're going to change this path just to prove to you that it works, and so it's into the right location, right? So we'll just rejig this thing. So the right location now is scripts lib, and then it's going to go into font-awesome, right? And then / CSS, and then font-awesome.min.css. That's the new path, right? So it's exactly the same as using Font Awesome manually, right? But instead of me going and do all that crazy work, I'm doing it here with Bower, right? So that's kind of the first thing. Let's test it to make sure that this all works. So I'm going to just run this thing up in the browser, right? So I'm kind of going to look this. Oh, it's not what I wanted. I meant to do Reveal in Finder, and then all I want to do here is double-click my index.html file and see if I get my project up here like we had before. And if you notice, I refresh. I still have my my navigation, which is and I got this little fort here that pops up, which means hey, Font Awesome is working, right? And to test to see that I got the right version, and somehow it's not caching. Because sometimes what happens is that your browser caches the previous version of your code. Let's check and see. I'm going to go inspect, and I'm going to go to console and no errors, sources. I'm going to look at my sources, and if I look at my index.html, I notice that my Font Awesome is using the new path, right? Scripts, lib, Font Awesome, and so on, right? So that's how you use Bower. Bower is a dependency manager, and what I want to do with us today as a little lab is I want you to recreate our project. Instead of using jQuery and Bootstrap and Font Awesome the way we've done it by going out, I want to use Bower to get all that working. So what I want to spend some time now with you, let's set up, and I'm sorry for those people that aren't here today, but what I want to do with the people that are here is I want to make sure that you can install Node, that NPM works on your command prompt or terminal, and that you can use Bower, because there's some tricks with Bower as well. One of the challenges with Bower, because we're behind a firewall here at the school, is that Bower sometimes will give you an error. It won't work, like here at the school, because Bower is trying to use HTTPS, right? And what we need to do is we need to fix Bower so that it can work without using HTTPS. So there's a bit of a fix that we can use as well. So sometimes if you get that error with using Bower, we got to fix that as well. So let's spend a few minutes. I'm going to go around, and I'm going to start installing. But what I want you to do is I want you to do those steps. Install Node for now. That's the first step. Once you've got Node working, install Bower on the global level. So go npm install, just like we had here. I'll leave it up so you can see it. npm install -g Bower. And if you can't do this on your terminal or your command prompt, I'm going to come around and fix it for you so it works. Okay? Let's get that done now. Again, I'll pause the video, and we'll come back when this is all done.